Welcome to Heartfelt Revenge. Does your wife come here often? The waiter did not ask it like a normal question. He said it quietly, carefully, like someone testing the weight of a secret they had been carrying too long. Like someone who had been waiting for the right moment to put something down. I frowned at him. No, I said. It is our first time here. My name is Elliot Carr. I am 35 years old. And if you think you already know how this ends, I promise you do not. Stay with me. Please subscribe and like this video and listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. My wife Mara and I had just sat down at a new restaurant downtown. The place was elegant but intimate. The kind of restaurant where the lighting is kept deliberately low, and the tables are placed close enough together that other people's conversations drift into yours, whether you want them to or not. The kind of place where everything looks curated and nothing feels accidental. We had been married for 7 years. 7 years that had started with the kind of love that makes you feel like the luckiest person alive and had slowly, quietly, become something I could not quite name. Not bad exactly. Just distant. Like standing on one side of a window watching something you used to be part of. I had suggested the restaurant myself. I thought a nice dinner might help. I was always doing things like that. Trying to close a gap I could feel but not see. I was looking through the menu when Mara stood up abruptly. I will be right back, she said. No explanation. No smile. She walked toward the hallway near the restrooms. At least that was where I thought she was going. The waiter returned a few minutes later to take our order. He noticed the empty chair across from me and glanced at it briefly. Your wife stepped out? Yeah, I said, not really paying attention. Probably the bathroom. The waiter hesitated. Paused just long enough to notice. Then he leaned slightly closer to me and lowered his voice. If this is truly your first time here, he said quietly, there is something you should see. You should come with me. I looked up at him. Have you ever had a complete stranger say something that makes your stomach drop before you even know why? Before your brain has processed the words properly, your body already knows. Something animal and old inside you recognizes the shape of what is coming before you can name it. I slowly set down the menu. The waiter pushed open the kitchen door. Follow me, he said. I stepped through. And the moment I looked across that kitchen, I saw my wife. But she was not alone. And she was not anywhere near the restrooms. She was standing near the back counter. And she was hugging someone. Not a quick polite hello. Not the brief greeting you give an old acquaintance you bump into unexpectedly. A long, familiar, comfortable hug. The kind that comes from a shared history. The man stepped back slightly. He was wearing a chef's jacket. For a moment my brain tried to find an explanation that did not hurt. An old friend, maybe. Cousin I had never met. Someone she recognized from her past. But then the waiter beside me whispered something that made the floor feel unsteady beneath me. That is why I asked if she comes here often, he said. She has been here before. The staff thought he was her husband. My chest felt like something was pressing against it from the inside. How many times? I asked. He hesitated for a moment. Enough that the staff thought he was her husband. I stood very still. I stepped forward slightly so I could hear them better. My wife laughed softly. The kind of laugh I had not heard from her in months. A relaxed, unguarded laugh that she had stopped using with me so gradually I had not even noticed it was gone until I heard it aimed at someone else. You did not tell me he would come tonight, the chef said quietly. Mara shrugged. He had no idea about this place. The chef smiled. Does he still think those dinners are business meetings? My heart dropped through the floor. Business meetings. That was what Mara always told me when she came home late. Traffic was bad. The client ran over. I grabbed something on the way. I should not have waited up. I stood in that doorway and I did not make a sound. Then the chef said something that made the entire situation suddenly and irreversibly worse. So tonight is the night you finally tell him? Mara shook her head. No, she said, with a calm that was somehow more devastating than any version of this I had imagined. Tonight he signs the papers. Stay with me. Because what I heard next changed absolutely everything. My first instinct was to walk straight into that kitchen and say something. Anything. The kind of reaction that lives in your chest before your head catches up with it. But I did not move. I stayed in the doorway and I kept listening. because something in me understood that what I was hearing was important in a way that went beyond hurt feelings and a broken marriage. Something cold and deliberate was taking shape in front of me, and I needed to understand all of it before I said a single word. The chef leaned against the counter. "You are sure he will sign?" Mara nodded. "He trusts me." The confidence in her voice was the thing that got me. Not anger. Not guilt. Confidence. The kind a person has when they have been planning something for a long time and they know the plan is good. "What about the house?" the chef asked. "All included," she said. "Once he signs the joint transfer, everything moves to the new account." The new account. I had never heard those words before. I did not know what account she was talking about. I did not know there was an account at all. Have you ever had one of those moments where suddenly every strange thing from the past several weeks rearranges itself into a pattern you can actually read? The business dinners that ran late. The legal email she told me not to worry about because it was just routine paperwork. The documents she had mentioned briefly and said we would review together later. Every small thing that I had accepted without question because I trusted her. All of it landing at once. The chef lowered his voice. "And after that?" Mara shrugged. "After that, there is no reason for me to stay married." The words landed like something cold. Not like anger, not like betrayal in the way people usually mean that word. Like calculation. Like a business outcome being described at a meeting. Clean and final and completely without feeling. The waiter beside me shifted uncomfortably. "I thought you should know," he whispered. I nodded. Then I pushed the kitchen door open and stepped through it. Both of them turned. Mara's eyes went wide the moment she saw me standing there. For a moment she could not seem to find her voice. Then she forced a smile into place, the same smile I had seen 1,000 times, the one I had always thought was for me. "Elliot, what are you doing back here?" I looked at her, then at the chef, then back at her. "I think the better question," I said quietly, "is what you were planning to have me sign tonight." I walked back to the table slowly, trying to look like a man who had not just had the foundation of his life pulled out from under him in a restaurant kitchen. The waiter stayed behind. I sat down, and that was when I noticed the folder. Black. Thin. Sitting exactly where my plate should have been. Not on the edge of the table, not tucked beside the salt and pepper. Placed. Deliberately, in the center like it was the real reason we had come here tonight. Mara returned a few seconds later. She sat down and smiled at me like nothing had happened at all. Like she had just come back from the bathroom and found me waiting exactly as she expected. "Sorry," she said. The line was long. I looked at the folder. "What is that?" "Oh," she said, sliding it toward me with a casual ease that must have taken practice. "Just some paperwork from the bank. Nothing complicated. Just a property adjustment. It makes the taxes simpler." I opened the folder. The words on the first page made everything in my chest tighten at once. Property transfer agreement. Owner Elliot Carr. Transferred to Mara Carr. I looked up slowly. "You want me to sign this?" She nodded. "It is just a formality. Have you ever watched someone lie to your face while smiling like everything is perfectly ordinary? While looking at you with eyes that used to make you feel safe. There is a specific kind of pain in that moment that does not feel like any other pain. It does not feel like grief exactly. Feels like something being corrected. Like your understanding of something true being quietly replaced with something false." Mara looked completely relaxed. Like she had already won. The pen was placed carefully beside the papers. "Go ahead," she said softly. "Sign it." I held the pen for a moment. I looked at it. I looked at her. And then I placed it back on the table. Mara's smile faded just slightly. "Something wrong?" I looked at her calmly and said the one thing she was absolutely not expecting to hear from me. "I know about the chef." Her face froze. Completely still. Not a flinch. Not a flicker. Just frozen. Then she laughed, quick and forced, the way people laugh when they need a moment to think. "I have no idea what you are talking about," she said. I did not raise my voice. I did not argue. I simply leaned forward. "You have been meeting him here for months." Her fingers tightened slightly on the edge of the table. Just slightly. But I saw it. "You followed me?" she asked. "No," I said. I tapped the folder lightly. The waiter told me. That changed something in her eyes. They flicked toward the kitchen door for just a fraction of a second. But it was enough. You should not believe random staff gossip, she said calmly. Then explain the chef, I replied. She opened her mouth, then closed it, because she knew exactly what I had heard, and she knew there was no version of an explanation that covered it. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then Mara pushed the papers toward me again. You are overthinking this, she said quietly. Just sign. No. Her patience finally cracked. Just the edges of it. But enough. Elliot, she said sharply. Do not make this difficult. I leaned back in my chair. You mean the way planning a divorce after transferring my house is difficult? Her face lost color. Slowly and carefully, the way a tide goes out. Who told you that? She whispered. I heard it myself. The silence between us stretched out like something physical. Then she said the one sentence that told me everything I needed to know about how long this had been planned. You were not supposed to hear that. I nodded once. Yeah, I said. That seems to be the theme of tonight. I'm going to pause right here. Because sitting at that table in that restaurant, looking at the woman I had trusted completely for 7 years, I felt something I did not expect to feel. Not rage. Not tears. A very quiet kind of clarity. The kind that only comes when you finally understand something you have been almost knowing for a long time. And I want to ask you something. Have you ever trusted someone so completely that their betrayal felt less like a surprise and more like something you had been unconsciously preparing for? Have you ever looked back at 100 small moments and understood all at once what they actually meant? Tell me in the comments. Because what happened next is the part that nobody in that restaurant saw coming. Someone stepped up behind Mara's chair. A voice spoke. Calm and flat. I think he heard enough. It was the chef. He had come out of the kitchen and was now standing at our table, arms crossed over his jacket. No friendly smile this time. Just impatience. The expression of a man whose plan was not going the way he expected. Mara turned slowly. You should not have come out here, she said under her breath. He shrugged. He already knows. Her eyes flashed with something sharp. You were supposed to keep him distracted. I watched both of them. Two people who had clearly been working together for a long time. Two people who had a shared language, shared plans, a shared understanding of exactly how this evening was supposed to go and what role I was supposed to play in it. Relax, the chef said. He cannot do anything about it now. That caught my attention. I looked at him directly. What exactly is it that I cannot do? He leaned slightly toward the table. The papers are legal, he said. Completely above board. All you have to do is sign them. Mara nodded. Her composure had returned. Whatever crack had appeared in it was sealed over again. And if I do not? I said. The chef smiled. Then things get complicated. For a moment nobody spoke. The restaurant continued around us. Glasses clinked somewhere. A couple laughed at a nearby table. The world going on in its ordinary way while something inside me was absolutely still. Then Mara sighed. The sigh of someone who has decided it is time to stop pretending entirely. Elliot, she said. This does not have to be dramatic. I laughed. I could not help it. Not a happy laugh. The kind that escapes you when something is so far from what you expected that your body does not know what else to do with it. You plan to take my house and divorce me, and you are calling it not dramatic? 7 years of marriage, she said. Let us be practical. The chef tapped the folder with one finger. You are still signing it, he said. I shook my head slowly. Mara leaned forward. There is something you do not understand yet, she said quietly. What is that? She smiled again. That careful practice smile. The house is not actually the most important thing here. My stomach tightened. Then what is? She looked directly at me. The account. I frowned. What account? The chef chuckled quietly. The one with $2 million in it. $2 million. For a second I genuinely thought I had misheard him. I looked at Mara. Then back at the chef. Then at Mara again. What account? I said. Mara tilted her head. You really do not know? Her tone was almost amused. The tone of someone who has been 3 steps ahead for so long that watching someone catch up feels entertaining. That money came from your company bonus last year, she continued. The investment account you opened. I felt my chest tighten. Yes, I said slowly. My investment account. The chef shook his head slightly. Not anymore. I frowned. What does that mean? Mara slid the folder toward me again and flipped to the second page. Look closely, she said. I read it. Then read it again. Because the document was not just about the house. Buried in the middle of the page, hidden inside a paragraph of legal language the way important things always hide, was another clause entirely. Financial authorization transfer. It would give Mara complete control over the investment account. $2 million. Every cent of my company bonus from the previous year. Everything I had set aside for our future, our retirement, the life I thought we were building together. All she needed was my signature. Mara watched my face carefully as I read. You did not read the documents I showed you last month, she said. No, I said quietly. I trusted you. For the first time that entire evening, she did not have a response ready. The smile did not come. The practiced composure held, but just barely. The chef spoke instead. Look, he said. Just sign it. Everyone walks away from this evening satisfied. I closed the folder slowly. No. The chef's smile disappeared. You are making this harder than it needs to be. Mara leaned forward. Elliot, she said quietly. Think about this carefully. Have I said? I pushed the folder back across the table toward her. And you made one very significant mistake. Her eyes narrowed. What mistake? I leaned back in my chair and looked at her steadily. You assumed I came here tonight completely unprepared. Now I need to stop here for a moment. Because what I am about to tell you in the next part is the thing that changed the entire direction of this story. And I want you to understand something first. I had not planned any of what happened next. I had not arrived at that restaurant knowing what I was walking into. But sometimes life hands you a moment where everything you know about yourself gets tested all at once. And you find out very quickly exactly who you are. Stay with me. Mara stared at me. You came prepared? She said. Her voice carried genuine disbelief. Not quite the controlled, measured tone she had been using all evening. Something slightly unsteady underneath it now. The chef laughed. Prepared for what exactly? I reached into my jacket pocket, and I placed my phone on the table between us. The screen was still lit. Still recording. The little red indicator had been running since the moment the waiter first leaned close to me and said those 6 words. The chef's smile disappeared. Instantly. Like something switched off. Mara's eyes dropped to the phone. Then came back up to my face. You recorded this? She whispered. Everything, I said. The conversation in the kitchen. The plan to transfer the house. The investment account. The divorce. Every single word of it. The chef straightened up. He crossed his arms again, but it was different now. The body language of someone calculating rather than commanding. That recording will not hold up anywhere, he said. His voice had lost its certainty. Maybe, I replied. But the fraud attempt will. Mara's composure finally cracked. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a visible fracture the way ice looks right before it gives. You are bluffing, she said. I shook my head. Actually, you made it remarkably easy. I nodded toward the folder. You brought the documents yourself. Her hands were not completely steady now. The fingers that had been so relaxed all evening, that had slid the folder toward me with such practiced ease, were trembling slightly at the edges. And you tried to have me sign them under false pretenses, I continued. In front of a witness. The chef grabbed the edge of the table and leaned forward. You think you can do something with that recording? He said. You think that is enough? I stood up slowly. I do not need it to be enough on its own, I said. And then I pointed toward the front of the restaurant. But the lawyer sitting at that table near the window might find it useful. Both of them turned. Near the window, a man in a dark suit slowly rose from his chair. He had been there since before we arrived. He had been watching the entire evening from across the room. Unhurried. Patient. Completely still in the way that people who understand the value of waiting are still. Mara's face went pale. Not gradually. All at once. The chef said nothing. He looked at the man in the suit, then at me, then at the phone on the table. The confidence he had been wearing all evening, that easy certainty that he and Mara were 3 steps ahead of everyone, drained out of his expression like water out of a glass. I picked up my jacket from the back of my chair. I looked at Mara for a long moment, not with anger, not with the kind of grief that wants to perform itself. Just looked at her. The woman I had married. The woman I had trusted. The woman who had apparently spent a significant portion of our marriage planning the most efficient way to leave it with everything she could carry. 7 years, I said quietly. You could have just asked me for a divorce. Neither of them spoke. I left the restaurant. I walked out through the front door onto the street, and I stood on the pavement for a moment in the night air and I breathed. And the feeling I had was not the one I expected. Not relief exactly. Not triumph. Something quieter and stranger than both of those things. The feeling of having found out who someone really was and surviving it. I want to stop here for a moment, because this is the part of the story that I have thought about the most in the time since it happened. Not the recording, not the lawyer, not the look on Mara's face when she realized the evening had not gone the way she planned. The part one keep coming back to is those 7 years. All the moments I had tried to close a distance I could feel but not name. All the times I made a reservation at a nice restaurant or suggested a weekend away because something told me we were drifting and I kept trying to paddle back. All the ways I had told myself it was just life, just busy schedules, just the ordinary erosion of time. And now I knew it was not any of those things. Tell me in the comments. And if you have dealt with something similar, share your story. You are not alone. Subscribe for more stories about standing your ground and reclaiming your life. Because there is one more part to this story. And it is the one that actually matters most. The days that followed were not what I expected. I had expected to feel angry. Properly, fully angry, the kind that fills a room and demands something. I had expected to lie awake running the evening back through my mind, finding all the moments I should have seen sooner, all the signs I should have read more clearly. Some of that happened. Of course it did. There were nights when I sat in the apartment that suddenly felt too large and too quiet, and I thought about every late dinner and every business meeting and every time she had smiled at me across a table, and I had believed it completely. There were moments when that specific kind of grief arrived, the one that is not about losing a person but about losing the version of a person you thought you knew. But mostly what I felt was something I had not anticipated at all. Looking back, I think what I actually felt in those early days was something like relief. Not relief that the marriage was over. Not relief that I had been right. Something different. The relief of finally knowing the shape of the thing that had been wrong for a long time. The relief of not having to live inside an unexplained distance anymore. Marcus, my lawyer, handled everything with a precision that I was deeply grateful for. He had been sitting at that table near the window before Mara and I even arrived. I had called him 2 days before the dinner. Not because I knew what was going to happen, but because the documents Mara had asked me to review over the previous weeks had started to feel like something I did not fully understand, and I had learned in my early years working in finance that documents you do not fully understand deserve a professional eye. Marcus had looked at what she had shown me, and told me quietly and directly that the paperwork had been structured in a way that was not routine and not simple and absolutely was not just a tax adjustment. He told me to say nothing, to make no changes to my accounts, and to let the evening play out while he watched from across the room. The recording helped significantly with what came next. Not because it was perfect evidence of everything, but because it demonstrated clearly that the attempt to obtain my signature had been accompanied by deliberate misrepresentation. That is the phrase Marcus used. Deliberate misrepresentation. The words that turn a difficult divorce into something with legal consequences attached. The chef, whose name I will not include here because I have no desire to give him more attention than this story requires, turned out to be considerably less calm when speaking to attorneys than he had been across a restaurant table. The confidence he and Mara had worn all evening was specifically designed for an audience of one. It did not survive a room with Marcus in it. The investment account was protected. The house remained mine. The property transfer was voided before a single signature had been placed on it. The divorce itself was eventually settled on terms that were fair, or at least fair in the way that legal settlements are fair, which is to say they reflected the actual facts of the situation rather than the version of events Mara had planned to present. I moved into a smaller apartment on the other side of the city. The silence of it was strange at first. I kept expecting to feel something dramatic, kept bracing for the breakdown I assumed was coming. It never really came. Not the way I expected it to. What came instead was something slower and quieter. A gradual re-understanding of what the previous 7 years had actually been. Not all bad. There had been good years in there, genuinely good ones, years when I had been happy in the way you are happy when you are building something and you believe in it. Those years were real even if they had been built on ground that was not as solid as I thought. I think that is the thing people do not tell you about this kind of betrayal. They frame it as a story about a villain and a victim. about someone terrible and someone innocent. And while the actions in my story were certainly wrong, the truth is more complicated than that. Mara had become someone I did not know. At some point in those 7 years she had made decisions and built a separate life and stopped telling me the truth, and none of that was because she was born to do it. People become capable of extraordinary cruelty when they feel trapped, and when they have convinced themselves that the person they are deceiving somehow deserves it. I am not excusing any of it. I want to be clear about that. What she and the chef planned was calculated and deliberate, and had it worked it would have taken everything I had built. But understanding it is different from excusing it. And I found, as the months passed, that understanding it helped me more than anger did. I started running in the mornings, something I had not done since my late 20s. I called friends I had let drift during the marriage, people I had slowly stopped making time for. I took a trip I had been putting off for 4 years, a week in a city I had always wanted to see alone, which turned out to be one of the best decisions I made that year. I started to remember what it felt like to be a person outside of a relationship, to wake up in the morning and know exactly what I wanted the day to look like, to make choices without negotiating them against someone else's hidden agenda. I still think about the waiter sometimes. I never got his full name. When I went back to the restaurant 2 weeks later to thank him properly, he was not working that evening, and the manager told me he had taken a position at another place across town. I hope he is well. I hope he knows that what he did mattered. That small act of decency in a room full of calculation, that quiet lean across a table and there is something you should see, changed the entire direction of my life. Not all the important people in a story are the ones you remember the longest. A year after that dinner I am in a different place in every sense of the word. Not a perfect place. Not a finished place. But a place that is genuinely mine, built on what is actually true rather than what I was willing to believe. I am 36 years old now. I know my own worth more clearly than I did at 35. I know the difference between trusting someone and not asking the questions that make things complicated. I know that the documents you do not read because you trust someone are exactly the documents you most need to read. And I know this. The most important thing the waiter said to me that evening was not anything about Mara. It was not the information about the chef or the visits or the staff who thought he was her husband. The most important thing he said was the first thing. There is something you should see. Because that is the thing, is it not? Most of the time the truth is available to us. Most of the time there is a door we can push open if we are willing to walk through it. The harder part is being willing to look at what is on the other side even when you are afraid of what it might be. I pushed that door open. And everything that followed, as painful as some of it was better than what would have happened if I had stayed at the table and signed my name on a line that someone else had drawn. If there is one thing I want you to carry from this story, it is that. When something does not feel right, when a document seems more complicated than it was described, when a smile does not quite reach someone's eyes, when a waiter asks you a question in a voice that sounds like a warning, pay attention. You are allowed to ask questions. You are allowed to read the fine print. You are allowed to trust your own instincts, even when the person across from you is smiling and telling you everything is perfectly fine. And you are absolutely allowed to put the pen back down on the table and say no. Thank you for being here. Thank you for staying all the way to the end. If this story meant something to you, leave a comment. I read every single one without exception. And if you have not subscribed yet, please do. There are more stories coming. There is one waiting for you in the description right now, and I think it is going to stay with you. Take care of yourself. Trust your gut. And read the documents.